Good morning, coffee chat friend. I just wanted to talk a little bit about volunteerism this morning. The topic has come up across my desk in communication with others quite a bit over the last while. So I wanted to talk about it as something to think about as we go into this new year here. Volunteer, we all love volunteers, don't we? It's something that's considered noble. It's something that's considered great for us to do once in a while. I remember when I lived in the small town of Bonda, Saskatchewan, there was a great voluntary spirit. One time the arena got rebuilt largely from voluntary effort, contributions rather, and when it was done, there was a Volunteers Day where everybody who worked on it a little bit, I did a little bit of work on it, we got a letter from the committee that was doing it, that was organizing the whole thing, I guess. So we could all come down to the community center, and be acknowledged as volunteers. It was a great spirit of community, I would say, with no policing involved whatsoever. It doesn't seem to be. Now, volunteerism is on the one hand. What is this in contrast with? Well, we can think of lots of terms: coercion, extortion, forced enslavement, these sort of things. There's a term which is often used in these sort of conversations as the gun in the room. So if there's two people in a relationship and they're both on equal footings, and they can just volunteer, they can negotiate, they can say yes or no to whatever. As soon as one brings a gun into the situation, proverbial gun, but let's say it is a real gun, then it's no longer a voluntary situation, because this individual is going to do things that they wouldn't otherwise have agreed to because of the ramifications of the gun. So that's what the contrast is really, and that's what we see for so much of the macro society. It is operated on this principle of the gun in the room. We don't call it slavery anymore, but it is a form of slavery because we're having to do things that we wouldn't have done, all the way from the forced registration of children. Well, people say it's not actually registration of children, but the registration process of the birth. We're told that we don't have a choice, and if we don't fill out this form, there will be ramifications. That is a form of a gun in the room. Can't take your child home from the hospital. There will be fines, these sorts of things that'll go out, right? The same thing goes for schools. We are told that if we don't put our kids in the school, there will be ramifications. That is illegal. Our children will be taken from us, or some sort of a threat. It's a good idea to put the kids in the school. Here's a great school. Here's the options. And you decide. No, it's not about you decide. It's we have told you to put your kids in a school. Now you got to put them in a school of some sort. That is approved by us. By us, the ones holding the guns. Right? So that is not a voluntary interaction. And of course, taxation it's a euphemism for theft. If we really think about it, it's like, we figured out that you've made so much money, you got to give us some. It doesn't matter if this is one individual or a million individuals. As far as the one being talked to, it's a threat that if I don't, so I give it because I don't want the ramifications of the gun. I don't give it as a voluntary interaction, like I would going to the store to buy a loaf of bread, or giving to my favorite charity. That is a purely voluntary effort, and there is no gun of extortion in the room. Now, the origin of this, of course, the reason that this can happen, I would say, and people are talking about this, most particularly Stefan Molyneux, who does a great job of this, of promoting something called peaceful parenting. Because if we think about it, when we learn about violence, and that violence can be perpetrated upon others, we learn, there's a concept called the formative years. The formative years of a child is when we learn values of what's acceptable, how we operate in society. And when violence is used against children, it becomes a learned language, if you will. It's just like a child who's born in Japan will almost certainly, just from a natural outgrowth of their living there, learn Japanese. If somebody is born in the Afghan hinterlands, they will probably learn the truths of Islam. It's just because they won't become spontaneously something else. So children become like their environment. So when we use violence, such as hitting children, time out, directing them against their wishes in just trivial matters, in putting them in daycares where we're not understanding what is being taught by the other kids around there. We're not able to supervise. We've put children outside of our supervision of protection, because that's what we're there for, is to protect those children. And when we put them in public schools where they're propagandized by the whole system that is a gun. The whole system is a gun. The teacher is being paid by the blood money of the gun, which is extorted out of the parents who go there. When we do this, we perpetrate this culture of violence, this covert, very often covert violence, into the children, and the system of coercive society continues, and we delay the natural progression towards voluntary society. And unwittingly so, I would say. Most people are okay with this. Either, I think in most cases, they just never thought about it. Never thought about it to a great degree. Or if they do think about it, what I've noticed is that what keeps coming up is, well, how are we going to do it other ways? How is another way that we can do it? We have to have this violent, coercive system. Otherwise, we can't function. We can't have roads. We can't have this. We can't have that. All of that is a distraction from what's really going on, which is, do we wish to voluntarily enter our relationships, or do we want to be coerced into them? Would we consider it acceptable that an agency said, this is who you're going to marry, this is what job you're going to do? There are societies that do that, and to them, once again, because what we grow up in becomes normal, to them that is normal, but we don't consider that acceptable in the West. But certain things, as equally as asinine, we accept, and it's just a matter of coming up to our awareness of this. It's not that we have to drop it right away, because it is extremely dangerous. Yes, I agree that if we were to drop everything that we have now and attempt to have a voluntary society, when most of us are extremely damaged by child abuse, we wouldn't be able to get up to speed in the time that it would take for another form of tyranny to come in and replace it. This is a gradual thing. This is a thing that'll take many years of those who see it's not about seeing something that is unseeable. It's right in front of our eyes. It's just a matter of us admitting it. Even if we are on the blood-sucking tit of those who take money that has been taken by the gun, even if we're there, it's not like we have to disengage ourselves right away, otherwise there'd be chaos. We have to maintain and live within the blood money system. For now, it's because of what we have. Until that whole evolutionary process takes place of enough children being taught peacefully and not being taught the language of violence, being taught the language of peace, and then it'll become irrelevant. The system will evaporate before our eyes, because to them it will make no sense. They won't even understand it. If somebody is not taught the language of Japanese, they will not understand Japanese. If they're not taught the language of violence, they will not understand violence. So it will be irrelevant. When there's only a few of them, they're imprisoned, they're encaged, they're ostracized, they're made to look like kooks, as is what's happening right now. But when there's enough of them, there will be all of a sudden those who believe in violence will be will feel marginalized. They'll feel left out of the conversation, and they'll then want to inquire about how they can get up to speed on this whole idea of us living peacefully together, not beating up each other, not defrauding each other, not stealing from each other, and calling it euphemisms like taxation and the common good and all this nonsense. We will wake up and realize that we don't have the right to steal from others and to imprison others, to enslave others, just because we said so. And even if we is the collective going after one, it doesn't matter. We still don't have the right to do that. Especially if we realize that within ourselves we don't want to be stolen from, defrauded from, enslaved, all these sorts of things. I just thought I would put that out today, because New Year is always a chance to reset the way we think, the way we act. At least we have that impetus often with these New Year's resolutions. Put that forward. Think about it. Volunteerism versus coercive violence. Which do you choose? I choose volunteerism, and I work to spread the word. I hope you'll pass this along. Spread the word yourself. Consider it. I think it's important. It's important for us to advance. It's important for our quality of life as individuals who interact with one another. All of that is important. Of course, like I said, it affects our quality of life experience. It's a much greater quality to have an agreed upon relationship, a friendship relationship with somebody else that's agreed upon, rather than somebody coming in and says, I'm the boss here, you can do what I said. That is not a great quality relationship. But what do you think? My name is Steve. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye for